Hello. Long time no see. Hi. Welcome or welcome back to this channel. I have not posted. It has been a month since my last post. A lot has happened. We have a new pope. I'm not Catholic. I don't know. I don't know why I said that. It's just the new thing in the news. It's the least horrifying thing in the news lately. Welcome. It's been a while. Life has, been lifing. I have kind of fallen off with this channel. I'm in grad school. I had finals. My son had his second birthday, which I can't even really get into too much. We went to the zoo, and I didn't cry. I cried a lot on his first birthday. I didn't cry as much on his second, which is progress, perhaps? I don't know. Here we are. And a few things have happened of note book-wise for me. Unfortunately, not as much reading as I would have liked. But I do have a haul. I have some things that I've purchased or have received. And I went on a trip to Texas for my friend's wedding. So that was fun. And yeah, I did my finals and here we are. And it is currently the Wednesday after Mother's Day in the US. So happy belated Mother's Day to anyone out there. And yeah, I want to catch you guys up. I want to tell you what's going on. The most significant book thing that has happened is that we did, in fact, achieve a book bingo, which is very, very exciting for me to have finally knocked one off. And it was great. I'll put it up on the screen. It was a diagonal. So that really helps me out because basically any row I try to go for now has at least one already ticked off. So these are the exciting developments in my life. So I'm just going to kind of go chronologically of how things have been happening, I guess, over the past month or so since I've last updated. This is going to be kind of casual, chatty. I'll do some book reviews for the books that I did manage to finish in March and April. And we're just going to get back into the swing of things. So we'll see how it goes. First off, I have a book that is a haul. This is a book that I was sent, and when I say sent, I am not cool enough to get things sent to me by publishers at this moment. If you are a publisher watching this and you would like to send me something, please do. But I'm not at that point in my journey yet. But my wonderful mother-in-law for Christmas got me a book subscription. And I'm going to go into more detail about it. I think I'm going to read all three of the books that I got from it together. So basically I had a book sent to me January, February, and March. And I didn't know what they were going to be. The category that it said it was award-winning. So it was lit ficky was what I was kind of expecting. And so this is the first book that I received, Redwood Court by Delana R.A. Dameron. And I had seen this one. I'd heard about this one mostly because it was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. I was trying to look and figure out what award it had won, but I'm not really sure. Maybe it was just it will be an award winner in the future because it's so good. I don't know. And all I know about this is that it follows a family in South Carolina set in an all-black working-class suburb of Columbia, South Carolina, and our main character learns lessons from those around her. So I think it's very much more going to be character study, time period study, because I believe this isn't present day. I feel like it might take place in the past. I'm not entirely sure about that. I don't know, but I am excited to read this one, just because I'd heard of it before and I knew what it was. And I got it. It came with some hot chocolate and some little cookies. Each one of them came with a different hot chocolate and cookies. I'll put the like thing on the screen, but I'll talk about it more when I actually read the book. I decided I'm gonna save the treats to read with the actual book itself so that I can really take in the full experience. So this was my first book that I hauled. Now, the first book that I read since we last spoke is Oona Out of Order by Margarita Montimore. This book, I loved this book. This was my first like full chest 5-star book of the year. I thought it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful. And this book is a story that kind of plays with time. So the concept is that Oona, on her 18th birthday, wakes up and she has been kind of pushed forward in time. So she's in her like 50-something-year-old body with her 18-year-old mind and her 18-year-old knowledge. So she's basically time traveled into the future. And she comes to find out that every year on her birthday, which is coincidentally on New Year's Eve, at midnight, she goes to sleep, and when she wakes up, she's in a different year, but it's not chronologically. She kind of jumps around in time. So she goes forward in time, she goes backward in time, and it's all about her kind of grappling with what that means. And what I really enjoyed about this one is that she doesn't spend a lot of time having to convince people that this is happening. Like, we get a very brief, or convince herself that this is happening and that she's not just crazy or that, whatever. And so we get a very brief kind of explanation of how she knows this is happening, how select few other people in her life know that this is happening. And then it's more just about how you cope with the idea of time passing, and for her, not passing linearly. And so I think it's a great one if you are in a stage of your life that you find yourself kind of wishing would move forward faster. I related to that in the sense that I'm in this place in my life where I'm in school, and there's a part of me that's like, it's going to be so much easier when I'm not in school anymore and I'm in my career, and I'm fully able to like focus on that, and I don't have school in the back of my mind. And I find myself kind of wishing time would move forward. And that's a hard thing to be, as also being a mom, because I have a really young child, and wishing time away is hard. And then there's part of it where I'm like, oh, but it'll be great to fast forward to when he sleeps through the night. But then, what will his personality be like? What will have changed? What will I miss about when he was little and I was like the beacon of light in his life that he cared the most about? Because that's not going to be true forever. And so it's this feeling of wishing time would move faster, but also wanting time to slow down. And this book really kind of touches on that. There are some years of your life that are not great. And then there are some years of your life that are like the best year you've ever had. There's no way that you can control all of the different variables in your life that make it good and make it bad. And so you kind of just have to like ride out the experience. And I think that's like a really big kind of component to this book, is just like how Oona deals with that when her perception of time is so skewed. And she has some knowledge, so her future self that has gone through all these iterations of her life leaves her notes and leaves her messages, but is very careful not to reveal everything that happens in a given year. And that's like a really smart decision, because if you know everything that's going to happen to you, like it takes the joy out of life. It takes the fun out of life. And it also is something that, like, even when she knows certain things are going to happen, she can't necessarily change them or fix them or anything like that. So it becomes this internal battle of like, how do I stop this thing from happening, or how do I make sure that this thing does happen? And So this book is really just about like how you have to take life as it comes at you, and you have to like process it as it happens, and you can't spend too much time, and Oona can't spend too much time yearning for a different period of her life, whether that's in the future or the past. But it's also funny and like sweet, and Oona is a fun personality to follow. I think she really is into music, and so there's a lot of musical references in here. And yeah, I really, really dug this one. I thought it was great. 5 stars. Next up are a few books that I hauled. I did go to a local used bookstore that I really loved, and bought a couple of things. I don't remember why, because I've been really trying not to buy things until I had gotten a bingo. I think my husband might have suggested it, and I was like, well, who am I to say no to that? So we went to the bookstore, and I got 2 books. The first one is The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland. I didn't know what this was when I bought it. I'm not going to lie to you. I read the first sentence, which was, Colette Lessange is a lonely artist who heads an elite fine art school for children in upstate New York. Her youthful beauty masks the dark truth of her life. She has endured centuries of turmoil and heartache in the wake of her grandfather's long ago decision to make her immortal like himself. So I think that was all I knew. I was like, oh, she's immortal. That's interesting. She's a vampire. This is a vampire book, and now I'm very excited about it. I love a vampire book, and so it was a happy accident that I picked this up, not knowing that it was a vampire book. And I'm very excited to try this one out. I don't know what the general consensus is on it. I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about it. I don't know even when it was published. 2023. Okay, so it's not like old. But yeah, I'm excited to read this one and give it a go, because I love vampires, like vampire stories. So, God of Endings. And then I also got Sense and Sensibility by one Miss Jane Austen. I have read 2 Austens. I've read Pride and Prejudice and Persuasion, and I've been wanting to read another one, and we didn't have another one, so I found this one cheap at the used bookstore, and here she is. I try to find covers of them that I like. I really liked the painting on this one. No idea what this is about. I've absolutely none. Sisters, I'm assuming, because there's 2 women on the cover. 2 sisters, they're kind of like opposites of each other, and they aren't able to marry the men that they love, and so they are just trying to deal with that. You know, it's a lot of Austen's books kind of have very similar themes of like women and the, you know, situations that they were put in with marriage and things like that, because they don't have any agency over their own lives in this time. And I love Jane Austen's writing. I am just a girl, so of course I do. But I think, you know, Jane Austen is one of those like writers that I want to read all of her novels, and so this will be the next one on the list. Let me know in the comments. I'm sure someone has read this. Let me know if this is where this ranks on your list of Austens. I think I started with Persuasion, which I kind of was like, I didn't love as much as I thought I was going to, but then I read Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So we'll see where this one falls on that scale. Next, I received my February book from my book box, and it was The Women by Kristin Hannah. And this is when I got this one, this is when I knew that this was coming from England. I didn't actually know that for sure, because the postage was a little weird. And then I saw this cover, and I'm like, oh, this is the British cover of it, which I love. I like this more than the US cover, so I was happy with that. And this book follows the women who worked as nurses in the Vietnam War. And, you know, kind of that untold story, because we don't hear, you know, a lot about women's roles in wartime, because all of the war stories are focused on the men and the fighting. And so this is, there's more going on than that, right? And so this book kind of gets into that, as Kristin Hannah's books tend to do, is they take like historical events and talk about kind of where women are placed within them. I will say, I'm excited to read this. I do want to read it. I'm a little worried because I read, The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. And I didn't really like it. It wasn't my favorite. I just kind of felt like it was a little, like women suffer. You know, that's what women do, is we suffer throughout history. But then at the end, there's inspiring message, but still suffering for women. And I know that that's realistic, but I just kind of get annoyed by the idea that, like, women's role in historical fiction is to suffer. And that's what we, you know, kind of read about whenever we read about a woman in history. And I think she just hits that point really, really hard. And I the ending of The Four Winds, I kind of was like rolling my eyes a little bit. I know it's very emotional and very sad, but I was kind of just like, okay. Really good things about this one. And so I'm hoping that I like it more than The Four Winds. You know, I read The Four Winds a while ago too, so maybe my opinion on it would be different now. I don't know, but I'm gonna read this, and I'm excited for it. So next is a book that I read. Again, we're checking off another one on the book bingo. So, Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. I was very disappointed by this one. So, the concept of it is like kind of what you would expect. It's getting really dark outside. It was okay when I started filming. Now I'm a little concerned about the lighting situation. Well, we persevere. This is, as you would expect, a retelling of Macbeth from Lady Macbeth's perspective, or at least that is kind of what I thought it was. I would say retelling is a really, really, I would use that word in the loosest possible sense of the term, because it takes kind of like, there's a guy named Macbeth in Scotland and his wife, Lady Macbeth, and they murder someone. And it takes that kind of framing and just goes completely nuts with it. Which wouldn't, I think, bother me, except I, like, when you call it Lady Macbeth, like, I feel like she could have just said this is inspired by Macbeth and named her something different, named him something different, and it wouldn't have bothered me. But I think if you're going to say this is a retelling, which by naming it Lady Macbeth, that's what you're saying. That's what you're advertising to me. And then just completely taking that story and like ripping it to shreds and just like creating your own story within that world. I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous, maybe. The character of Lady Macbeth too, like in the original play, she's nuts, okay? But she has a lot of agency and a lot of power, and she's very strong-willed, and she's kind of the one calling the shots in her relationship with Macbeth. And so then I kind of expected that in this book as well, just like why she's making certain choices is probably different than what we're led to believe in the original. Or like, you know, I expected a more sympathetic kind of lens on her character. But instead, her character is just really, really meek, doesn't make any decisions of her own, doesn't have any agency of her own, just kind of has to go along with X, Y, and Z because she's a woman and da-da-da-da-da. And I just felt like you actually had a character written in that time period who is extremely, like, strong-willed and powerful, and, like, you're gonna take her and turn her into this meek little subservient person who isn't responsible for any of her actions, which I think is why she's turned into that, right? Is because we don't want to hold her accountable for the choices that she makes. And I'm like, I am here to support women's rights and women's wrongs. I want her to make the bad choices. I want her to have agency and own up to those decisions and tell us why she did them. And so I don't like that characterization of her. The coolest aspect of this was the witches, the three witches. I thought that was a really cool twist of how they're incorporated in here. I won't spoil it. But then, yeah, then there's some, like, fantastical shit that happens at the end that I was just like, all right. Seems a little convenient to me, but okay, sure. And I was kind of bored, honestly. Like, it was very slow paced as well. So this one just did not hit the mark for me, unfortunately, and I'm sad about that because I love Ava Reid and I loved the idea of this. It just, in execution, didn't live up to what I wanted. So not that, who cares what I want, but I'm just saying. This is my channel, I'm talking about it. Yeah, so I gave this, I think it was like probably like a 2 or a 2.5. I'm so sorry. The third book that got me towards my book bingo, which was Wool by Hugh Howey. This is a sci-fi dystopian. The Apple Plus TV series Silo is based upon this book. I have not seen the series. And this is another one that, unfortunately, another one that just did not live up to what I wanted from it. I read it very slowly. It took me a very long time. This is pretty long. And I felt like it was too long. I think it needed to be trimmed a little bit. And I know that what I found kind of the most interesting aspect of the book is that there's an author's note in here that talks about kind of how this came to be. And it was originally, I think, published online for free as like internet, like short stories or something like that. And then he just kind of compiled it into a novel. And so that was really interesting. Like how the creation of this concept. And I do think the concept is fascinating. I love a dystopian. This is centered around there's been some sort of catastrophic event and humanity is contained in a silo, which is, you know, like a big tube. I don't know how to describe it. You know, where farmers and whatnot would keep grains and store things, and so it's been repurposed. This giant silo has been repurposed into like where people live. You can't leave. If you leave, you die. And the first part of this, man, I was hooked. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then we switched perspectives, and I was still interested. I was like, okay. And then we switched perspectives again. And each time we switched perspectives, I was like, okay, I really like this because no one's safe. You know, no one is safe in this. This is a little George R.R. Martin-y in that, like, you can't just be like, oh, this is a named main character. They're probably going to make it decent part of the ways through the book. Oh, no. And then we get into, like, our protagonist that we're following for the majority of the story. And that's when I felt like things started to drag for me. I felt like there was a lot of explanation of like kind of, you know, I need an air system, so I'm hooking up this tube to that and this tube to that and this, and you know, this is how the filtration is going to work. And that's too much for me. I am not a sciencey girl. I don't love that technology girl. Like I'm sure it's interesting. But I was just kind of like, can we get back to the plot here? Like, I don't really care how she's making this, like, air system so that she can go do whatever. It's not interesting to me. The political aspect of it is way more interesting. And when we leaned into that, I was in it. But we came out of the story so much to, like, focus on survival and, like, things that you need for survival, which I understand and makes sense for the story. But I was just kind of, it was a lot of description, and it was a lot of long, lengthy paragraphs of describing how she was doing X, Y, and Z, and I just found my attention wandering a little bit. I don't know if I'll continue on in the series. I don't know if I am interested enough to do so. But what I might do is check out, I need to get Apple TV Plus. I need to get Apple TV back so I can watch Severance anyways. So maybe I will check out Silo and see if that kind of, seeing it like in a TV format would capture my interest a little bit more. So I don't think this is bad. I think if you're really into the nitty-gritty kind of sciencey aspects of, you know, what a dystopian world would look like, then this is for you. But if that's not so much of interest to you, then I think maybe this one might drag a little bit like it did for me. The other thing that I want to mention is that there is a male main character in this book who does some really questionable things and is very, very easily and readily forgiven for them at the end of this story. And I didn't love it. I didn't love it. That bothered me more than I think it probably should have. So yeah, I kind of was like, that aspect of it, I was like, this man needed to be called out a little bit more for some of the things that he decided to do or not do. Okay. Yeah, so this one I gave, I think it was like a 3. It kept my interest on the plane decently enough, but I did kind of have to keep bringing myself back to attention for it. So, not horrible, but not amazing. Sorry for the abrupt lighting change. It definitely, the weather has been playing games with me because it was nice and sunny when I started filming, and then it started raining, and now it's just really gloomy. So I had to turn on the light so that, I'm not just like in complete darkness for the rest of this video. Anyways, next book that I hauled. This was in my March book box, and this is the third and final one, which I was getting really accustomed to a new book arriving to me every month. And I know book of the month and blah, blah, blah. But this was free because it was a gift. So it was nice to have, that, and I missed it. But anyways, Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. This is the one that I'm the most excited of the 3. Because I heard that this was like very heavily inspired by Little Women, because you have 4 sisters, and one of them has died unexpectedly, and the other 3 are, trying to cope with that, and it's 3 like very different sisters and all of their family dynamics. I find sister relationships super fascinating. I don't have a sister that I grew up with. Like I have I have a sister-in-law and like an almost soon-to-be sister-in-law. So I have like that experience, but I don't have like biological sisters that I grew up with, and I find sister relationships really fascinating. I have friends who like have sisters, and just watching how they interact is so interesting to me. So I think I'm going to be really interested in this. I think, every kid kind of grows up wondering about what they don't have. Like if you grew up an only child, you wonder about having siblings at all. If you grew up with sisters, you might wonder about having a brother, etc. So I don't think it's not like I wish I didn't have a brother, I wish I had a sister. That's not what I'm saying. But just like, I'm just curious about sister relationships. I find them to be quite interesting. And I've heard that the writing is really beautiful in this, that it's really sad and moving and heartfelt and all of those things. So I'm here for it. This is like the one I'm the most excited of the 3. Then I went to Texas. And the moratorium on not buying new books ended. Where like, because I bought a few from the used bookstore, but like I was like, I'm not gonna buy a brand new book until I have achieved book bingo. But then there was this really cute independent bookstore in the town that we were staying in. It's called Neighbor Bookstore, and it was just adorable. And the bookseller there talked me into getting this one, Small Things Like These by Keegan. And this man like sold me on this book. And this is not one of their more expensive books that they have in there. So it was definitely just like a genuine love of this book. And just talking about how, as a writer, the ability to craft a story that is short and impactful, because this is teeny tiny, is like so much more impactful than someone who writes like a really, really long book. Like if you can pack a punch in like a small book. He had a really great quote where it was like, it's like a novelist is a failed short story writer. A short story writer is a failed poet, or something like that. And so I was like, okay, I will buy whatever book you tell me to buy at this point. I was like in. And I don't even know what this is about, really. It's in an Irish town leading up to Christmas. So I'm thinking I'll try to read it maybe around Christmas time. Do you really, you know, I find myself with short stories or like novellas kind of wanting more, but that's almost like a good feeling of like, man, that was so good. I wish I had more of it, but it was the perfect amount of what it needed to be. I don't know. I'm very excited for this one. At that same store, I also bought To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. I thought this was a really fun cover. And this one is a book on my book bucket list, 100 books you're supposed to read before you, you know, aren't reading anymore. I don't want to say die. I feel like that sounds dramatic. And I mean, I really want to read a Virginia Woolf anyways, and this is the one that's on that list. So, I'm excited to give this one a go. What is it about? Let's find out together, shall we? To the Lighthouse is made up of 3 powerfully charged visions into the life of the Ramsay family, living in a summer house off the rocky coast of Scotland. There's the serene and maternal Mrs. Ramsay, the tragic yet absurd Mr. Ramsay, their 8 children, and assorted holiday guests. From the seemingly trivial postponement of a visit to a nearby lighthouse, Virginia Woolf examines tensions and allegiances that shows the small joys and quiet tragedies of everyday life that could seemingly go on forever. So I'm noticing a lot of the books that I've hauled are very like character study focused, and I'm not mad about it because I do enjoy that in a book. So, this one. So, in addition to the independent bookstore, there was also, and these I guess are really big all over Texas, half-price books, which I think they're probably in other states too, but I just kept like seeing like it felt like a very regional thing. We don't have this particular, like we have used bookstores in North Carolina, but like this particularly like half-price books kind of like logo and everything felt pretty unique to the area we were in. I don't know, someone can tell me if I'm wrong. But this was cool because it was literally like the paperback books are half their listed price. So I picked up this one. So this was $9. Normally it's $18 for this paperback. And this is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And this is one I've just been hearing about constantly. It's a National Book Award finalist, and it follows a young man who is kind of like wanting to become a martyr, or like very interested in the concept of martyrs, and he encounters this woman who is dying and wants to make her death really significant, which is like kind of the concept of being a martyr in the first place, is that you're, you know, going to make your death significant in some way. And I've heard that this is like exquisitely written and really interesting and really well done. And so I grabbed it because it's been on my list and it was half price. How do I not? I'm surprised I didn't walk out of there with more books, if we're being honest. My husband actually walked out of there with more books, but he doesn't have a channel, so he's not going to talk about them. So then the last book I'll talk about that I read, mostly in April, it did carry into May a little bit, but we're going to just pretend I read it in April, was The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. This is a cozy fantasy where our main character was a librarian in kind of one of the larger cities of this fantastical world, and there is a revolution. She has to flee. She goes back to her hometown, which is on this like island, and she has to learn how to kind of make a life for herself. And so it's her and her sentient spider plant named Kaz, and you know, obviously there's a little romance involved, and she opens up a jam store. And that's that. There is more to it than that. I think that is how it's pitched because it's like wanting to seem pretty low stakes. And it is low stakes. You're never like super, super fearful for any of the characters at any point. So it takes some of the anxiety off of the reading experience a little bit. However, I thought there was a lot more to this than I expected from getting that kind of synopsis of it. I thought it was going to be more heavily focused on romance and like her interacting with all of the like townsfolk, which it is, but there is a lot of kind of hidden in there about, you know, the powers that be there's a revolution happening because the people in charge of all of the magic in this land, all of the spells, have not been handling it appropriately, and they've been persecuting people for using it without permission, like using magic without their knowledge, without their consent. But then they're also not helping people that need spells and need help with things. It's got a little bit of like a, don't necessarily trust the things the government's telling you type of situation. But that is not the main focus of it. This was just really fun and sweet and wholesome. And I think that the sentient spider plant, Kaz, gets my award for least annoying sidekick kind of creature character, because oh my gosh, I've read some books where they have the like talking plant or talking cat or whatever, and it's the most annoying thing on the planet. He's not. He is great. We love Kaz. And so I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really inventive. The world is like, it doesn't seem to be like fully based on any one like mythology or mythos or anything like that. She kind of came up with her own creatures, her own, ideas of what this world looks like, which I really enjoyed the creativity of that. I will say towards the end, because we spend so much time kind of settling into this world and, hearing from Kiela as our main person, hearing from her perspective about things, the ending felt a little bit rushed to me. It felt like we kind of, had to hit a few plot points really, really quickly to wrap things up. And I didn't love the pacing towards the end, especially with the romance, because like this is a very like closed door, you're kind of waiting until the end to see them get together type of thing. And so then that felt rushed to me, and I was like, no, because I love them. And so it just kind of like felt like we skipped over some of that development of their relationship. The protagonist in this was great. I felt I related a lot to our main character, which I don't normally find in books like this. When a lot of authors try to write an introvert character, they write them as like Oscar the Grouch. Like, I hate people. I don't want anyone to talk to me ever. And that's just not, in my experience, true to what an introvert is. Like, it's not that you hate people, it's that you don't want to feel this pressure of expectation upon you to respond to people in a certain way. And that is very much Kiela's kind of perspective. She's like, why is this guy coming over and bringing me stuff and fixing things for me? Like, what am I going to owe him if he, continues to do this? And so it's not that she doesn't want to spend time with him, or, she just like, she likes her solitude. She likes to not be surprised by visitors and people coming up, but she doesn't hate people. She just, likes to know what's expected of her. And I found that really relatable. And she, obviously she's a librarian. She really loves books. The love of books you can feel in the writing of this. And so I gave this like a 4-star just because the ending fell off a little bit for me. But man, I really enjoyed it. I think there's another one set in this world that Sarah Beth Durst is putting out. And I will definitely read it because I found this to be quite sweet and a good time, a good way to pass the time. So, dun, 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 dun. On Mother's Day, my wonderful husband, he was going to go out and buy me a book, but he had been really sick the week prior, so we took a family trip to the bookstore together, and I picked up Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Everyone has been reacting to this book and freaking out about this book online, and I want to read it so bad. And I was like, finally, I'm gonna get it. I'm just gonna buy it, and I'm gonna have it because I must know Haymitch's story. Obviously, if you don't know what this is, it's the Hunger Games prequel. If you don't know, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. That's okay. I'm so excited for this one, and yeah, I literally cannot wait to get into this one. I'm saving it but I don't know how much longer I'm going to hold out. So we'll see. Okay, so thank you if you hung in there. I feel like I talked for a long time. I feel like that's going to be a really long video. Editing is going to be super fun. But I think I've caught you up kind of on where I'm at reading wise. Thank you. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you stuck and you hung around and you stayed subscribed to my channel, even though I was like not putting videos out for a month, I really appreciate you being here and watching this. Just heart. Thank you so much. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that over the summer I'm going to be a little more consistent with putting videos out. That is my plan. I can't make any promises, but that is my plan. So, all right. Have a good one. Bye.